just didn't understand why did he go away from his bread and butter that was winning him most of the games. But you're right. As far as Chicago, I'm not sure if I would touch them right now because I don't know what their philosophy is going to be. But I still believe that Jay Cutler has no other option but to throw to Alshon Jeffrey. Who is his second receiver? Eddie Royal? Do you really believe it? Eddie Royal, come on now. He's the flavor of the week. He's the definition of your favorite.
He start off with three touchdowns in one game, and you get nothing.
Eddie Royal is the definition of flavor.
You are absolutely right.
So I would trust Alshon Jeffrey this year. To give me crazy numbers like Julio numbers.
Yeah, I can agree.
Anything.
I can agree with that.
So as far as this week, if he's playing, I would trust him.
I can agree with Julio numbers. I totally think that if they can get together, the offense together, that he may do something. I'm gonna stay away from him at least this week. He gonna have to.
Also, another sleeper at 6,800, which is pretty cheap. Jordan Matthews in Philadelphia is a bargain because we know that he's the number one receiver in Philadelphia. So he's probably going to be the guy who's seeing most of the targets this year. So that's another sleeper for me.
The wide receiver position is so deep when you start talking sleepers, or we can't even call them sleepers. We're going to call them great values. Like, okay, for instance, you go to Kansas City. We know the touchdown to the wide receiver thing has sucked. But Jeremy Maclin got paid for a reason. He got bought there for a reason. Jeremy Maclin, which I have drafted in every league I'm in this year. I expect nice things of him. Mm-hmm. For 7,600, you cannot lose with Jeremy Maclin at wideout. Because if anything, which FanDuel and DraftKings are as a PPR, he will at least get touches. Even if he don't get the touchdowns, he will get touches. The best fantasy bargain of all of last year, and maybe again this year, Yak. If y'all don't know who Yak is, Golden Tate.
Absolutely. I have him in my starting lineup for fantasy.
At $7,100, Golden Tate will give you a good value at $7,100.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on Golden Tate.
He may get you a higher value than the Alshon Jeffrey.
Great fantasy. A great value this week.
Great value. That's what he stayed
at. $7,100 as opposed to getting somebody Antonio Brown at $9,300, I believe. I would definitely take Golden Tate over Antonio Brown.
Same thing if you're trying to stay in that range. It's straight. Same thing if you try to stay in that range of Amari Cooper, $7,100. Amari Cooper will be the number one over there. As you brought up, Jordan Matthews was a great one at $6,800. I'm gonna also go down. $6,300. You may get the best value you can find at $6,300 with Mr. Salsa himself. He will score against Dallas. If nothing else fails, Victor shows up against Dallas. Victor may get a 10-yard slant and house it. I know he's not 100% healthy, but Victor is 100% healthy for Dallas.
I'm very curious to see how that's going to play out in New York. Because I know you love Eli Manning, and I have absolutely no faith in him. But he's got to throw to somebody, okay? ODB looked like arguably the best wide receiver in history over the last 6 months of the season. Okay?
Yeah.
So how does Victor Cruz equate into this? Come into this equation? I don't know. I do believe he's still very talented, so he's got to eat. But I'm curious to see how that's going to play out between those two.
But see, at the same time, when Victor, remember him and Roddy White's getting to it about it because Victor is a slot guy. ODB on the outside, Victor going back to the slots. Even when what was my man that I used to love that was there, Hakeem Nicks. He played outside. Victor played the slots. You got Ruben on the other side on the outside. Ruben Randall. I think Victor's going to continue to play his role. He may get less targets, but when he gets the ball, I think he will deliver. That's a great value. I'm going to give you another great value, and this sounds ridiculous. It's two of them. Both of them sound ridiculous. But if you're looking to score big and have some money to maybe get you one of them top-tier tight ends or change your quarterback, at $5,600, yes, I'm finna say this, Michael Crabtree. At $5,600, he looks good as of right now. In Oakland, the preseason, he looked good. David Carr. Is it David Carr or Derek Carr? I keep mixing them up.
Derek,
the little brother. Derek Carr actually likes throwing to him. Amari Cooper, with being a rookie, will demand some double teams. We might finally see a small glimpse of Mike Crabtree. He would never be what he was supposed to be coming out. But for your FanDuel purposes, at 5,600, he will be a solid pickup. And I'm going to say this last one as a solid pickup. Pretty much should be in everybody lineup. For 5,500, you get the clear number 2 in Green Bay in Devontae Adams.
Yeah,
You must, if you take, for instance, like in my lineup right now, I got Brandon Marshall, Antonio Brown, and Dez Bryant. Antonio Brown and Dez Bryant as my wide receivers. I'm finna switch Brandon Marshall for Devontae Adams because that gives me room to get a better quarterback. Or gives me room to get a top tier tight end because he's going to get touches.
yeah.
If A-Rod is this great quarterback that we say he is, he's going to get touches. And last but not least, my sleeper is playing in tonight's game, and he's $100 less. One of the greatest route runners of all times. He still has it. Reggie Wayne at 5,400 if you want to go stacked. Because I think Reggie Wayne sees the end zone tonight. I don't know how many times, but I see if you try to build everywhere else.
I believe Reggie Wayne got cut.
They still got him on here. Did they cut him?
I believe Reggie Wayne got cut by the Patriots.
That's a damn shame. Well, you heard it here first. I didn't know.
Yeah.
If that's true, don't touch him. It got this man playing.
That'd be pretty amazing.
Yeah, it got this man playing, but who knows? I don't know. I don't know. My cable off. I got to pay my cable. I just ordered.
Pay that cable.
I just ordered DirecTV. Oh, last but not least, since he stole my thunder with that, I'm in love with this guy right here. He showed at the end of the season what he can do. Tony Romo has fell in love with him himself. Cole Beasley at 5,000 may be a watch. Cole Beasley at 5,000 may be a player that you consider getting, especially at 5,000. My do not touch, I would probably say, if you're talking big money, would be Odell Beckham, because Eli will struggle against Dallas this week. He will struggle against Dallas this week. It will not be the best looking game for Eli. It's going to have a lot of people texting me and tweeting me saying, you got Eli as a stud, and he sucks this week for you. So I'm going to stay away from Eli, and I'm going to stay away from ODB. You got any wide receiver stay away from?
I think we talked about that.
Yeah. I gotta go back to it. Yeah, you did. You did mention it.
I think I mentioned who was it? Dez Bryant. I said I would stay away from this week.
Yep.
Yeah.
You did say that.
I think that's pretty much the only guy that I absolutely hate this week. If I had to give you another guy, I guess I would say Calvin. I would probably stay away from Calvin this week. You know, at the price at 8,500, like I said, you know, you can go Terrence Williams. I love the Devontae Adams pick that you said. Maybe even Larry Fitzgerald. I believe Larry Fitzgerald and Carson Palmer have a rapport going. I don't think he's going to be a top wide receiver, but just for this week, it could be a decent pick against New Orleans, whose defense is, like I said, pretty sick. And Charles Johnson in Minnesota. I would lean towards him as a sleeper. He's not. I wouldn't stay away from him. Charles Johnson is a guy who I love this year, and going against San Francisco, who we not sure how good their defense is going to look. Yeah, I would take a flyer on Charles Johnson this week.
I think Charles Johnson, not just for daily fantasies, if you did not draft him, he need to be somebody that you look at or at least consider, because I think he does have something to bring to the table. I think he will be.
Oh, let's not forget Marcus Wheaton this week. I'm sorry. Marcus Wheaton, who's stepping in as the number 2 wide receiver for Martavis Bryant. He could be a sleeper. He could be a sleeper. Just someone to keep your eyes on.
And he didn't have a bad year last year. Like he was pretty solid last year, actually.
Yeah, until.
He wasn't
until Martavis Bryant came.
He wasn't your go-to guy, but at the same time, he also was a spot player. But when he was called on, he made big plays.
He was solid.
He made big plays. A position that you've deemed as the most important position in fantasy, one of the most important positions in fantasy, tight end.
I'm not playing no games with tight end in daily fantasy. I'm going straight with Rob Gronkowski. He's the surest thing that I can think of, but that anybody can think of. What the hell, But as far as a sleeper, I mean, it's not really too many people that you can sleep on when it comes to tight end, because there's maybe 5 startable tight, not startable. I don't want to say elite either, but 5 or 6 maybe tight ends that you would love to have in your fantasy, that start in your fantasy league. But after that, it gets kind of shaky.
It gets very shaky.
After the first 5 or 6, it gets kind of shaky. You're taking flyers on them. One of the flyers, I guess, would be Ladarius Green, because we don't with Antonio Gates being suspended for the first 4 weeks. That's one guy you may want to keep your eyes on, because it's been a lot of talk about him. This is the time for him to actually prove himself. But as far as daily fantasy, I don't know if I would lean towards him. That's why I say I'm going with somebody who I know is proven. And I'm going to go with Rob Gronkowski. I really can't recommend too many sleepers when it comes to tight end. We don't know how Jimmy Graham is going to look in Seattle. Martellus Bennett, that might be a good pick at $6,200.
Yeah.
If you can squeeze him in there. If you didn't, use up if you got some money left. Greg Olsen as well. But after that, it's just whatever.
When you go, I'm looking at maybe Larry Donnell, which I personally don't like, but Larry Donnell may be a good one. I think Travis Kelce.
Larry Donnell, I didn't see him.
Larry Donnell is going for $5,300.
Okay, yeah.
I think the second closest thing to a for sure tight end would be Kelce. He catches a lot of balls. He caught all the touchdowns last year over there. We hope that changes. Green better play, because Green was supposed to be the starter.
He's got like an ankle or something.
Yeah, he does. Green better play, because Green was supposed to start last year, and Tone just handcuffed his spot back. Tone actually might have had his second best of his career last. Tone balled last year.
Yeah, what he had over 10 touchdowns.
Yeah, Tone really
10 or 11 touchdowns or something.
Tone really balled last year. Sleeper, I would say Jake Reed at 5, or Jordan Reed over there in Washington.
Okay, that's a nice pick.
The young man in Tampa Bay, Safari Jenkins. I think he may be a decent steal, because one thing about a rookie quarterback, the closest thing to them is usually the tight end, and he leaves some room there with the young man Jameis Winston, and I think that's a solid pickup.
I guess if I had to throw a sleeper in there, another one, it'd be Kyle Rudolph. Let's go with Kyle Rudolph. Let's be honest. San Francisco lost pretty much every linebacker they had, and we all know the linebackers is who shadowed the tight end.
Yep.
And if you're working with third string tight linebackers, Kyle Rudolph could possibly have a good day in San Francisco at Candlestick Park. So that's one that you can keep your eyes on if you were looking for a value pick, which is what I believe is $5,300.
Yeah, I can see that. I could agree with that. I don't have no do not stay away from on tight ends. Besides, I would say be weary on Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, that's
let week 1 play out before you jump the gun and fall in love with Jimmy Graham being over there. Let week 1 completely play out before you jump that way. Kickers, I'm not gonna really go into kickers. Y'all should know you just need 3 points out of these guys. You know what I mean? Just get you a solid kicker. Same thing with the defense, so we can wrap this show up. Same thing with the defense. I'm not really going to dig deep into defense. You're going to spend a lot of money on defense. You don't know what you're doing in fantasy anyway. But just to give you a roundabout, the Bills go for like $5,000. Green Bay versus Chicago should be a good matchup at $4,500. and that should round out your team. Give you guys my team that I